Greetings from lovely people. Good afternoon, right? It's 19, cold at noon, quite chilly today, just no time. Cloudy and cold weather. We're not here to discuss the climate, are we? Let's comment a bit. About the situation in Brazil, a series of countries around the world, and the United States, right? Because of this new wave of sanctions, the first thing we have to make clear is the nature of these sanctions. The nature of these Trump sanctions is teleological in the sense that he seeks something with it. He wants some of that. And what does he want? In the deepest sense, he wants to reverse the dramatic situation of the dollar. It's mostly that. Does he want to prevent the collapse of the US economy? In any way, if we look at this collapse from an economic point of view, it's realistic. We take a society is not just an economy. That has to be very clear, right? We have to have a very precise understanding. A society is not just an economy. A society has culture, a society has values, a society has politics. All societies in the world are politically organized. So it's not that we're reducing the United States of America to the North American economy. It's not that, but the foundation of the United States. Much more than a homeland, the United States has always been on the market, right? The founding fathers of the United States were essentially smugglers, traffickers, and tax evaders. Who would like to be free to practice genocide and steal indigenous lands at will, and preferably continue enslaving human beings from Africa. The fact that the United States does not resort to history is because their history is absolutely shameful. They dropped 2 atomic bombs on civilians and practically decimated the Japanese Christian community. No other country on this planet has dropped atomic bombs. No other country. I am atom bomb in dwarf war be the United States. Guardo of the Democratic presidency, Heretum on the United States will be proud to have, you think, the history of the United States. What do they have to be proud of if not the ignominy? So it's not that they don't learn from history, it's that they hide it anyway. History is hidden. Right? They hide their own history, even from an American citizen. American citizens, we know this is more or less public, that they have a knowledge of geography far below criticism. But their knowledge of history is also very poor, because what are you going to be proud of? You see, China emphasizes history, Iran emphasizes history, Israel invents a history that it doesn't have, but is, like it or not, being invented totally false. It is a certain importance that they give history. Russia President Vladimir talks me into addressing the Russians. He always makes historical references. Comrade Xi Jinping not only makes historical references, but also shows that he knows culture, legends, fables, knows the Chinese people. Now, Trump, who is the son of a legal immigrant, right? Married to an immigrant. He doesn't know North American history, especially because his family has been in the United States for a very short time, right? His grandfather, his grandparents were German, right? His grandparents were Germans. His mother was a Scottish illegal immigrant from the Hebrews. Most of his marriages were with immigrants as well. He's currently married to a Slovenian, right? So, like this, you're not a man who knows the history of the United States. Or even that you care about the history of the United States or the American people. He doesn't care about the American people. In fact, I suspect he doesn't care about basically anyone. Americans knew this before the election. It is not a fact that only the anointed know if they want to be deceived, because so they wanted, oh, we want to be fooled, wanting to believe that Trump is a patriot. Okay, all right. Vladimir Putin is married to a Russian woman. Xi Jinping is married to a Chinese woman. Marco is not married to a French woman. Lee Khamenei is married to an Iranian woman. Donald Trump didn't, and it wasn't the first time things of the heart happened, but it wasn't the first time he was married to a foreigner, was it? There's Eastern Europe. We have a lot of Freud there, but we're not worried about Donald Trump's personality, although, of course, it has severely impacted what's going on in the world. Obviously, his personality. A megalomaniac narcissist, and I take, no matter at a time like this, an absolutely classless man. He has no class, you know? A human being who puts on the official presidency page a photo of a meme of him in Superman's super uniform is not a self respecting person. He is not the person who respects his own people, or he is not the person who thinks he's respected. At least he's clueless, right? But the deep point is because we know he wants to avoid the dollar debacle, which is what sustains the United States still, because then we will talk back to the issue of the United States. A country cannot be summarized to its own economy, to other factors, but let's focus analysis on the economy. Is there anything capable of saving the United States economy? Because let me share some screens with you. I prepared some things. I'd really like to share some screens with you. Yeah, I would really like to share some screens with you. Let me just wait a minute. I'm going to have to make one. I'm going to have to open it, right? I prepared the screens, but I didn't open them just for a moment. Sorry for that, a hesitation, right? I'm going to start by showing some things from the world. Let's start with the world normally. I'll do what you want, right? You have to start understanding the world starts with the village itself. But for practical reasons, we're going to start trying to understand the world, and we're going to use a source that may seem strange that it's this one. Oh. Sharing the wrong screen, right? And that one is done. It's this one here. Oh, it's this screen that I wanted to share from the beginning. No, wait, it's not working. No, wait, it's these things to do live here. Ready, we did it. You see here, this site is from the CIA. This site is from the CIA. Oh, there. Oh, you see? www.cgov. This site is CI. Let me show you which site this is. It's CID. The World Facting Book, they changed soon, right, to something scarier, an intelligent eagle. Freud explains it, right? But let's see, the data isn't that accurate, is it? They are not as good as the World Bank's IMF, but they are aggregated and represent the North American view of the world. That matters to us, right? It's www.cia.gov. Then you go in. It's only when you put the word factbook in your browser, you'll get here. We have a country option. Let me try to translate into Portuguese to make it easier, right? No, not always translate from English. We're not here in countries, it's country. Here are all the nations of the world, all the territories of the world that the United States recognizes. Afghanistan, Crotila, and Kelly, which are those bases, is British that exist in the area of Cyprus, Albania, Algeria, Samuel American. But we're going to start here with the United States, right? Here then is the United States of America. If we enter this site, you can see how I am navigating it. It's pretty simple. Like I said to you, I like it a lot to show my sources so that everyone who watches us can themselves reach conclusions that may be different from ours. And there you have a series of data here. Originally it's in English. It's because I asked the browser to switch to Portuguese. Most of our audience is in Portuguese. And then we go here in economics. We are seeing economy, economic panorama, real GDP. Purchasing power parities, no one uses this GDP anymore, this foreign exchange GDP. It no longer exists. The PP per official exchange rate, this does not exist. Nobody pays attention to that anymore. It's just a pickaxe and a bad professor from a business administration college, a law teacher, a private university, just these types of people with this data. The data is by purchasing power parity for this data. The GDP of the United States in 2023 was $25 trillion. You see it here, right? 24 trillion, $907 trillion. The data is a little late. EE do not correspond to those of the IMF or the World Bank, but it is a good data because it allows a comparison, even if it is not totally accurate. So the GDP of the United States here is $25 trillion ranking in relation to the world. So they themselves admit that the largest economy in the world is China. And here we take the largest economies in the world. According to the United States, by this data here, China's GDP has already exceeded $40 trillion. But let's use this data because it illustrates so well here. By this data here, China's GDP has already surpassed that of the United States by more than $6 trillion. The Americans themselves recognize this. India over here is actually already the third largest economy in the world, $13 trillion. Russia, in fact, has already overtaken Japan and Germany and is the fourth largest economy in the world here. Brazil is still the seventh largest economy in the world, but in reality, we have already been overtaken. But they're fine. Yeah, yeah. Here's the list of the biggest economies in the world, right? If you want to seek the correction of the world, it becomes even easier. You can see East and Africa, North America, South America, Central Asia, Europe, right? This is what? Not here. It can't be South America. This is South Asia, right? Sorry, it's not South America. It's extreme South Asia. It's Middle East, Africa, Australia, and Oceania, Central America, and the Caribbean. So here you have all the regions of the world. It makes it too easy for everyone to have access to data from the entire planet, right? And notice the data here. Let's take South America here. No, no. Tick here. Oh, you can take by region. We are taking by countries of the world, but you can take by region of the world here. Oh, India. Brazil is the seventh largest economy in the world. India is the world's third largest economy. Turkey, the world's 12th largest economy. Saudi Arabia is, so you have all the regions of the world by continent and you can choose the information, remember. Let's go back here in economics. You don't have some very interesting things. And remember, we're talking about the United States, right? We're talking about the United States of America, right? Specifically, the economy of the United States of America is GDP growth rate 2.89%. GDP per capita 746 cent USD, huh? Inflation rate, here they put more recent data, 2024, because it favors it. But you can see that the history of inflation in the United States is pretty high, and now inflation is going to go up horribly. I want to comment with you basically this here. Participation in the sectors of the economy. 0.9% corresponds to agriculture,
Primary sector in the United States represents the 0.9% of the economy. Secondary sector is right total 17.6%, and the service sector is 76.4%. So one explanation here, the values may not total 100% due to unallocated consumption, not captured by industry reported data.
But in fact, what we have here is an estimate, because the real data is that cerebro, 9% of agriculture, is really from the primary sector, industry is 19%, and the service sector is 80%. Those are real values, right? The United States, by comparison, has the 23rd largest share of the services sector, the 156th largest share of industry, and the 184th largest share of agriculture. That is the agricultural industry of the United States, which are real sectors of the economy and are destroyed, right? They are far below the criticism that says family consumption represents 67.9% of GDP. How much more do you increase social inequality? Rich families consume very little. When you increase social quality and impoverish most families that are poor or middle class, household consumption falls, so GDP falls. Government consumption, as you invest less, you adopt neoliberal politicians, it falls. Fixed capital investment, right? That basically we are talking about large companies' participation.
Fixed capital investment in the United States only increases the cost of household consumption and government spending. However, this fixed capital investment, unlike what happens in other countries of the world, which translates into an increase in GDP, does not happen in the United States. Why doesn't it happen? Because this fixed capital investment, roughly speaking, is made in the speculative sector, real estate sector, finance sector. So you translate 11. It's like a bat apologizing for its own blood.
Yeah, it's about that. Agricultural products in the United States, corn products, soja, milk, wheat, beet, sugar cane, potato, chicken, pork, tomato. Oh, but these people produce sugar cane, yes, in the South and in Hawaii. And here they are not talking about the value, but notorio is lage. Sugar cane weighs too much, although the value is very low.
Growth rate of the industrial population and industrial production was 3.25% in 2023. So here is unemployment that has been growing. You can see that we show here that GDP has been growing quite well, but unemployment is growing at a higher rate than GDP. Why is unemployment growing at a higher rate than GDP? Exactly because of the composition of GDP, because it is reducing government consumption, it is reducing household consumption,
And it's increasing investment in fixed capital, each of those three things. This alone harms employment and promotes unemployment. That's why, despite having passed the COVID crisis and everything else, the United States has a very high unemployment rate, right? The unemployment rate is very high. Youth unemployment is 10.4% among men and 8.3% among women, right? It's a Gini coefficient that measures inequality.
it is in 2022, it was 41.3. It's good. Let's look at the world ranking for 36, that we can take a look at the most unequal countries in the world. We will find Brazil here, the seventh most unequal nation on this planet, seventh nation more unequal than the lower planet. Only South Africa and Namibia, which went through apartheid, Colombia, which went through what we all saw, and Yortina was also a victim of apartheid, Hong Kong, which is an aberration, and Botswana.
Right, these are the countries. Only six countries in the world are more equal than Brazil. So we took advantage and saw 11 interesting facts, right? Is it, let's see, okay. Composition, industrial growth rate, labor force, unemployment, youth employment rate, inequality. This hygiene coefficient, people, for those who don't understand it, it measures inequality the closer it is to Zero minus uneven. The closer to 100, the more uneven. This is the seventh most unequal action in the world. Average household expenditure on food, 6.8% of household expenditure. Alcohol and tobacco, 1.9% of household expenditure. But of course, that changes with the income level, right? Because the poorer a family is, the more it will spend on food. And with alcohol and tobacco, household consumption income by percentage. You see what I told you there? Oh, household consumption of the highest 10% is 30.2% of the poorest 10%. That's 1.8% of the idea. But didn't you say that rich families consume little? They consume little. They consume much in value. They do not consume much in quantity produced. The rice I eat is very different from that of a rich person, as in fact the consumption access of a rich family is completely different from the consumption access of a poor family. That's the reality, right? The remittances that Trump was going to tax to impose morality on immigrants represent only 0.03% of the GDP of the United States and do not grow. Who knows what you're finding with the shipments, right? Oh, we're preventing people from taking money out of the United States. I think he is doing one thing. You who will make a huge difference in the United States, not only 0.03% of GDP sent out. The budget here already had much higher expenditure than revenue. Revenue is 5 trillion and expenditure 6.3 trillion. The public debt, which today is 123% of GDP, today is 114. At that time, it was 114.8% of GDP, and we see the most indebted nations in the world. Japan, 216% of GDP. And we will talk about Japan in the opportune Greece. You know that country that the European Union helped, so almost double its GDP in debt, helped it become even more indebted, right? Singapore, Lebanon, it's destroyed. United Kingdom, then you have Barbados, Italy for the debut, okay? Go to Brazil. You don't think it's easy because Brazilian public debt is 33rd in the world and falling. Okay, let's continue to take a look at this data here, which will help us understand some things very calmly, dryly, calmly. The budget, deal with taxes and other revenues. The tax is equivalent to 10.6% of GDP. They're always one of the countries where taxes, and then I want to get into this aspect. 11, a little more attention. United States spends and collects 10.6% of GDP in taxes, is one of the countries in the world that charges the least tax in relation to GDP. The highest taxes are levied by Goranland, Andorra, Cuba, Libya. There are some small countries, Venezuela, Kuwait, Flanders, Bolivia. It goes down, 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 down. Does Brazil remember that conversation? This I want to highlight. Remember that conversation that says Brazil has the highest taxes in the world? Whenever you see an idiot saying that Brazil has the highest taxes in the world, look at the real position that Brazil occupies in relation to GDP, 142nd. Brazil is one of the countries in the world that levies the least tax. I mean, on this whole planet, 141 countries charge more taxes than Brazil. 141 countries is Brazil, Cobra. The highest taxes in the world. When you hear a retarded, dishonest, lying person speak this nonsense, this lie, this dishonesty, then I want to take a look. Isn't it the Chinese Communist Party website? No, it's not the PT website. It's the CIA website, which makes it clear that Brazil has position 142. That of the United States is even lower, right? Then Argentina has position 171. Germany 172. The United States is between Paraguay and Tajikistan when it comes to tax collection. When you collect few taxes, it is very difficult for you to give the population, the quantity, a good quality of life. When you make Brazil and the United States not collect taxes from the middle class and the poor to pass this money to the rich, well, then the situation gets even worse.
right? The situation is even worse because taxes serve to sustain inequity.
I hope that the city you saw, we're talking about the CIA website, has helped you. Current account balance deficit plus $1 trillion in the balance of payments. Oh, the United States exported $3 trillion there. This data varies according to the source, but I want to show you it's not this data, it's this one. What is the largest trading partner of the United States? 14% Canada. China accounts for only 8% of US exports. Canada accounts for 14%, while he overtaxed Canada, which he did by 35%. Man, he took the greatest partner the country has and grinded it. That's what the United States did, right? That is what the United States did. Canada is the country to which the United States exports the most. Huh? Exchange rate, we will observe that it is, but this data will not enter because a lot has changed. The United States is much worse in this regard. Anyway, folks, what I want to show you is here. Oh, number of nuclear reactors, 94 energy production, any data you want about geography, about the environment, about government, about everything of any country in the world itself is on the CIA website. Look on the CIA website. It's the most accurate in the world. No, but as it shows all the territories of the world, it's very good for us to make 11 comparative bases, right? And I wanted to specifically show the issue of taxes, how much Brazil collects few taxes. Oh, but I don't know who said no, not because a person stops being dishonest or stupid, or lie and look for the real data. How much does Brazil charge for a tax in relation to GDP? You discovered very interesting things, didn't you? Now, specifically about the United States, without a basis for comparison, I want to show this data here to study, explain why Trump is doing what he is doing. He has a public debt of 37 trillion and 89 billion dollars, right? The public debt of the United States of America. That's what we're looking at here. 37 trillion and 89 billion dollars. It's an extraordinary public debt, right? A public debt that scares or at least should scare, right? That scares or at least should scare every taxpayer. In the United States, it owes an average of $323,000. But it only gets worse. It only gets worse.
Public debt represented 34% of GDP in 1980, the year Ronald Reagan took office, and represented 123% of GDP there. Do you remember? So, yes, it increased fourfold. You remember when I showed that the United States is one of the countries in the world that charges the least taxes and the other is Brazil? How do they manage to maintain the budget if they charge so little tax with the public debt?
Charge a little too little in taxes. They don't tax the rich, they don't tax multinationals, big companies, corporations, banks, financial speculators, real estate speculators. These people don't pay tax. These organizations don't pay tax. So you have a tax base that's basically the poor and the middle class that supports the government and the rich and foreign corporations. How this base is not enough to support all this, right? This catarvage, what's happening? You have to resort to indebtedness, to increasing public debt. This applies to both the United States and Brazil. So we understand why the public debt has grown. It started with Fernando Henrique Cardoso and the PSDB of the state of Sao Paulo when he took the debt of the banks and simply federalized it. He bought the bank's debt and put it on the Brazilian people to pay. That's what Fernando Henrique Cardoso from the PSDB of Sao Paulo did when the government was in the country for 8 years. And that's why we are so indebted.
Furthermore, as revenue is low, you basically tax the poor middle class to meet the government budget. What about expenses? The government has to go into debt. This is true for both the United States and Brazil, which in the case of the United States, the data are here. Oh, everybody sees 37 trillion, 89 billion, 819 million every second that goes by. 700 and thousands of dollars added to that debt. And the main effect is this here. Oh, the big effect of the huge public debt is the gigantic fiscal deficit. The United States collects where the United States collects this one 5 trillion 187 billion 997 million. But what was the cost? 7 trillion 196 billion 254 million dollars so far. So that leaves them with a deficit of 2.8 trillion and growing with every passing second. This is America's biggest problem. You know why? Take the city that you're seeing here. Let's get the three dice. We're interested. First fact, they're cascading. Easy for you to find. You see the website here, right? OSBF Bloch, Concord, United States has a public debt of 37 trillion 89 billion dollars and a fiscal deficit of 2 trillion 8 billion dollars, which corresponds to 123% of GDP. And because of that, they spend an interest payment of 1 trillion and 34 billion dollars every year just paying interest. So, of the total you mean raised, which is this here, 5 trillion, 187 billion, 1 trillion, and 34 billion, goes only to the payment of interest. When the spokesperson of the Chinese government said that the United States of America cannot pay no interest on its own debt, evidently they will not be able to pay the total debt. Why can't they pay off the debt in full? Because the value of their GDP. Let's remember here what the GDP of the United States is. Let's look again, shall we? Let's look at what is the GDP of the United States here. GDP of the United States according to themselves, right? We go here. So look, leave some windows open and you can consult what is the value of the GDP of the United States according to the United States itself is 25 and 38 USD. And this is the value of the GDP of the United States according to the United States itself is right by the CIA, $25 trillion. But what is the value of the United States public debt according to the United States itself? Because here are the sources, right? The sources are the Treasury Department, which is the United States government, Federal Reserve, which is the United States government. So the United States has 11 GDP of 2538 USD, makes the national debt of 3738 USD, which is obvious. The Western Fountain is the treasure of the United States. Because of that and because they don't tax the rich or companies or corporations or billionaires, just as Brazil does, public debt increases immensely. This increase in public debt leads to the fiscal deficit. This increases the fiscal deficit. It leads to the fact that the little budget they have is spent more and more paying. No, no, no. The public debt, which is unpayable, which is much higher than the GDP, tries to pay the interest, and the collection of 5 trillion is not able to pay the interest of 1 trillion. And something similar happens with Brazil. We're talking about the United States, right? The total debt of the United States. It's 104 trillion, 973 billion dollars, often 4 times higher in GDP. Theirs is the total debt. That debt, of course, cannot be paid because let's remember Michael Woods, a debt that cannot be paid will not be paid. This debt cannot be paid because the United States collects and is showing what it collects. That's 5 trillion, 188 billion dollars. If you raise 5 trillion, 188 billion, how do you pay? A debt of $37 trillion, a certain national debt, and the total debt of the United States is $104 trillion, and the GDP of 25 trillion can't pay, right? If you buy the software doesn't, right? It's the software, right? The Focus STF application, we would have much more information than here on the free page. Okay, I've invested some of my hard-earned money to buy software that shows information in a much more detailed way.
But just looking around here, you get an exact sense of what it is. It's the financial situation of the United States, derivatives, which is like insurance that can't be paid because it can't be paid because it's the value of derivatives in the United States. No, millions, not billions, $730 trillion in a derivative. That's debt. Add that to the 104 trillion deficit, the unsecured bonds that have only surpassed $200 trillion. Then the United States owes well over 4 billion with a GDP 40 times smaller than that. How are they going to pay? It's like you earn, it's, I don't know, 1,000 USD a month and owe 40,000 USD. There's no way to pay. And you have no assets. Oh, the patrimony of the United States does not work. It does not work because look here, the patrimony of the United States reserves of precious metals, 1 trillion and 200 billion dollars, mineral reserves, 9 trillion and 300 billion dollars. Ill state is the real estate sector. Here it is saying that it is worth 76 trillion dollars, but it is not really worth it. That is speculation. How is the real estate sector worth 3 times the value of GDP? That doesn't exist. The land, yes. The land outside the real estate market, outside the cities, is valued at $24 trillion. And this is a data that makes sense that it is more or less the value of GDP in a normal modern situation, a country in which 80% of the United States is a little more than that. Until then, the population lives in the city and a percentage of 10-20% lives in the countryside. It is normal that the value of the properties in the city equals the value of the properties in the countryside. So if the value of the properties in the field is $24.7 trillion, how is the value of properties in the city worth almost $76 trillion? There is no stock market is the value that exists. Stocks like the GDP of the United States is $25 trillion and the markets are worth $51 trillion. There is no such thing. There is absolutely no such thing, you know? It's not realistic. It means that companies are worth 2 times more than companies are worth. And here we are talking about these stock markets are only companies that have shares on the stock exchange. All right, only corporations have shares on the stock exchange. Many companies are not listed on the stock market, including large companies. There's no stock in the stock market. For example, there is no stock in the stock market. The companies of the Koch brothers or the heirs of the Koch brothers have no stock on the stock exchange. Let's talk medium-sized businesses, small businesses. Small businesses don't have stock on the stock market. So how does the stock market share? That's twice the GDP of a country. This does not exist. This is the demonstration of what is financial speculation. And over here we see real estate speculation, right? So here is financial speculation. And here in this duo here we see real estate speculation. That is, the GDP of the United States is invented and does not exist, correct, and simply does not exist. Simple as that. It is. We have a lot of data about the economic and social situation of the United States, but I don't want to talk about them. I basically want to show you how to find this data. How to find this data. This is very important that we have the real data here. Oh, official unemployment, 300,000 people. Real unemployment, 12,900 million people like Turtway, many people who are not working or looking for a job, right? Self-employment, the labor force is 164 million people. Real unemployment in the United States is 8%. 1 in 2 Americans is unemployed. And the concept of being unemployed in the United States is very strange. Because if you worked 1 day a week, you consider employing, you can be sure that this unemployment number is much higher than what's being shown here because the United States economy has collapsed. And I want to help show you these collapses from agriculture data. I'm showing you some websites. Now I'm going to show Falstat. Falstat will help us debunk a common lie about Brazil, that Brazil depends on agribusiness. Brazilian agribusiness feeds the world, China.
If Brazil would not survive, it is not like that. You are here on the FAO website, right? The website was with the FAO. Your wingspan will take it to the until there post and shows the statistics of the FAO, which is the Organization for Agriculture of the United Nations, right? Agriculture and food. I used to work for them, not at FAO, but for FAO when I finished my master's degree, but I won't talk about myself. We are going to show how to analyze the data and prevent the defenders of agribusiness, the liars, the extreme right, the press from lying to you is who agro sustains Brazil, Brazilian agro food, Neo American world. We are going here in production, right? It's easy, right? Production. I will also switch to Portuguese to make everyone's life easier. Where do I learn Portuguese here? And that's the navigator. The browser I used was Chrome. It wasn't very friendly with Chinese sites, so it was hurting me because I get a lot of information straight from China, straight to India, and it's a browser that wasn't friendly. So I switched to this one, which is Edge, and incredibly, it's much better for you to navigate to websites. Oh, but there's no, I don't know, I can't find here where it goes to Portuguese, but it's good, right? We're here, we're behind this one. Oh, production of what? We are after harvest and herds. Crocs is harvest. Livestock is ribeye. So harvest product there. Oh, it's the last review, June 2025, even very recent data. Then we take it here, right? Harvests. And what we want, let's take, for example, is I want to take, for example, China. I'm going to start with China. I choose a country here, right? China. China choosing China is seeing choosing China. Planted area? No, no, no. I want to know the quantity produced. Quantity produced. I'm going here, city produced, the most recent year for all 2023 data. And I'm after crops. I'm not after live animals. I'm not after near harvest herds. I just basically want to know about the harvests. Do you understand what I chose here? You see, right? Quite easy to use. Go to the PAO website, choose the country. You can choose more than one country. You can do 2 countries, 5 countries, 10 countries, all countries, but I chose here China. Quantity produced, but you can choose the area produced, amount of field, right? The stock to the herd, you can choose whatever you want, right? The primary harvest is not processed, the primary. What came out of the sun? Do you see the year 2023? It's very simple, it's very intuitive. Oh, Google browser, it has a more friendly translator, easier to find for those who have a lot of difficulty in English. This is easy. Then we go here, we choose the year 2023, the quantity of agricultural products produced in China, and I will generate the data. You see, ready, date generated. So it's all about China. So almonds, so much so that China produced almonds 100,000 T. The value here is not the financial value. No, as we choose is the quantity factor produced. The value here is tons, right? Value is tons. Pick up something really important because nobody cares that much about almonds, right? No one wants to know about it. Apples, did China produce 4960350T of Masar? Let's take as a reference. Let's open a window here. How much did Brazil produce soybeans and corn in 2023? Artificial intelligence. You're going to show us that hero. Brazil produced 15,2,000 tons of soybeans. 15,2,000 tons of soybeans, right? In 2023, yes. But what was the production of millet? So come on, let's get soybeans then. 15,2,000 tons. In 2023, Brazil produced 15,2,000 tons of soybeans. Soy feeds good or produces oil for industrial use that Brazilians for some reason consume, but this is not the case. Apple China. Apple is a thing that people consume. Do not consume. People consume apple. It produced almost 5,000 tons of apples. China has produced a lot. What is this, huh? 5,49603,000 T of apples. I didn't see asparagus. Nobody cares. No artichokes, no avocados, no bananas. But China and Brazil, 12,000 tons of bananas. Wow, China produces bananas like this. 12,000 tons. That's it here. Berries, what I sit on, right? China produced 2,000 tons. Dried beans, 13,000 tea. Let's see here. Cabbage, 36,000 tons of cabbage, melon, 14,000 tons of melon are things that people eat. Carrots, 18,463,000 T of carrots. Not cassava, right? Cassava. I didn't even know China had cassava. Whoa, man. Almost 100,000 tons of broccoli and octopus and flour. Almost 100,000 tons of broccoli, octopus, and flour. Let's see here another important thing. Not pepper, no. Nobody cares about that, do they? As much as I like cinnamon, let's face it, right? Look to say even coconut. 387,000 T of coconut, 109,000 T of coffee. Look, who would have thought, right? Is this zucchini pumpkin? 8,000 tons of pumpkin, 8,000 tons of pumpkin. Man, that's crazy. 8,000 tons of pumpkin. How much here? 39,000 tons. Genius, man. Eggplant. It's eggplant. 39,000 tons of eggplant. My God in heaven, 13 million tons of grapes, 13 million tons of grapes. Wow, my God in heaven. But China does not depend on Brazil for food. Let's keep going, shall we? Let's analyze kiwi, 2.3 million tons of kiwi, limes and lemons, 2.4 million lentils. No, not even if you went for Calface. Lettuce, man, lettuce. It was 14,900,000 tons of lettuce, gives 14,900,000 pounds of lettuce. How many lettuce is not needed to make one key? You can imagine the amount of lettuce that the Chinese produce because then this is food. Do you understand? Carrot is food, eggplant is food, cabbage and food, apple and food is food. It's not soy, is it? Come on here, corn. Tutunuit 9,000 tons of miles. China produced 289 million tons of millet in 2023, almost double what we produced of soybeans. Let's repeat, 289 million tons of miles. Wow, this here is what mango and guava, almost 4,000 dozen tons is food. You know that, right? Miletus, 27,000 tea, truffles, and mushrooms, mainly mushrooms. Mushroom guy. 47,000 dozen tons of mushroom. Do you have any idea what that is? 47,000 dozen tons of mushrooms. Onions. 249,000 tons of onions. Almost 25,000 tons of onions. Almost 100,000 tons of chives, 707,590,000 tons of oranges. My God in heaven. Oh, but China didn't depend on Brazil for food. And we're showing food here. You're showing it's food, right? The church has pig feed, not corn, sleep, cottonseed, soybeans. You're not talking about food. Come on, Daddy. Papaya, huh? 685,000 T peach, 55,000 T pear, 19,950, and almost 2,000 zebra tons of pea losses, right? So 118,000 T of peas. Lime boy, peach doesn't like you like lime. 4,000 dozen tons of lime.
Oh my God. Pistachio, not palmelo, R. 5,000 tons of palmelo, right? Plum, huh? Almost 7,000 tons of plum. Potatoes, 93491,000 of potatoes. Almost 100,000 tons of potatoes. That's something people eat. Punk, I think. That was zucchini. Even pumpkin is punk. It's 7,423,000 T. It's the Chinese. So prefer zucchini and not pumpkin. The mature barbarian appeared 74,000 Zambot just for the thing. Right hippie that doesn't even rape. People exactly cost a 16,000 ZLT rice, which is what people eat. No soy, that's the care. Eat rice in 2023, 2008, tons of rice. But there's more. I'm going to show you Chinese agriculture. If Brazilian agriculture thinks it is powerful, it will show here what is really powerful. Cotton seeds. Oh, Brazil sells cotton seed. Huh? Because to feed cattle, right? China produced waiting 5,000 tea sesame 4,000, then 45,000 tea sorghum 3,000 tons. Soy, China produces soybeans, yes, 90 tons of 500,000 tea, almost spinach, 3177,000 tea of spinach. Wow, strawberries. 42,167,000. I'm talking about kilo. My way is tons of spinning sugar beet, 9,000 tons of sugar cane, 140,000 tons of sugar cane. This here is sunflower, 3,000 tons of sunflower sweet potato, 51,000 tons of tangerine. Hold on, 27,000 tons. Of course, here we are grinding almost 2,000 dozen tons. Tea leaves, both God, 1,600,000, right? 16,000 dozen tons. That is 16 billion kilos of tea leaf. Wow, tomatoes. 7,000 tons of tomatoes. My God in heaven, this here, guys, right? It's not the joint, it's not the kaimo that they use to make rope to serve as a tie for traitors, right? 107,000 T of tobacco. This is a people who smoke 23,000 T of tobacco. Wow. For watermelon, almost 64,000 tons. Holy God, what people for watermelon? 6,396,000 T of watermelon wheat, which is another thing that people eat, 1,659,6,000 T, is if you add it up already, it gives more than 1,400,000,000 tons of food, 1,004,000,000,000 tons of food. What does Brazil produce for food? Hey, hey, you see this here, guys? You're seeing this right here. Well, agriculture sustains Brazil, feeds the world. No, it doesn't feed. Then do we pay too much taxes? We are not one of the countries in the world where the least tax is charged on the planet. 141 countries in the world charge more tax than Brazil is about that. Lies if there is no tomorrow, lies if about the United States, lies if about Brazil. They lie about everything. The press lies, the commentators lie, the bloggers lie, or they're just stupid dumbass, right? We don't know why they're lying if it's because they don't know the truth. They are too stupid to be able to find the truth and so put artificial intelligence to make a video for you. But here I want to do better. How can you get the data yourself, right? This video to show you how can you come to your own conclusions? So I'm not going to jump to any conclusions. I'm essentially showing you all how to get to indicator data. Tonight, I want to talk more about geopolitics. We are dangerously close to war in the Middle East, and the economic situation of the United States is very worrying for them, more than for us, incredible as it may seem.
but we're also in the spotlight, right? That helped us unmask the web communists, right? The false left, the false workers, the false widows, the extreme right, the Bolsonaro gang, the so-called center parties that infest Brazilian politics, but which are actually extreme right. So in this video here, I just wanted to show you more the facts and how to find them. Whenever you have trouble finding a fact, an explanation, a fact, please guys, put it in the comments. I said I would like to know where I can find information about this. It's because I don't have all the time in the world, but I don't have that much comment. I try to answer whenever possible. So I make a point of answering, of helping you not to be deceived by anyone. Never again, because once we know the truth, the state of lies does not return. Truth is the liberator. Because of this, once you know the truth, and it is not the truth of the conspiracy theories of a lineage's building pyramid, is not truth of the facts. Once the truth is known, the lie does not settle again. That's why the great Jesus said, know the truth, and the truth will set us free. I can do very little to undo the lie that so many people come, but whatever I can do, I'm here willing, okay? I hope you have a great afternoon and even more. It was just about that, even to the AA comment, the analysis, I will do more in the evening. Now, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to come to your own conclusions. Always save this video, share this video, forward this video, subscribe, like, and we also have the channel on Telegram. Get in there is Newsfront, right? Look for news from the front. But you find him writing that T point bar me front news, you will find our channel and his name on Telegram. We are always there, available to everyone, because we know who the fake father is, right? We know here lies are good, and I want to give you, even though I have very little that I can, that is the power of truth. Have a great afternoon, all of you.